Guys, it's me, your boy TPT, coming at you live and from Twitch TV, but this shit's going up on the YouTube as well. Anyway, guys, hope you're having a fantastic day. I am live at twitch.tv/TwinsPlayTechIt right now. So I thought that I would actually also upload this to YouTube to show you guys my way of automatic food production in MC Eternal. Now, there are simpler foods that you can make with less materials than this, but our goal is dim sums. Now, it doesn't look like a lot because it's only 4 drumsticks and 9.5 points of saturation. However, all of the food in MC Eternal has been nerfed by a lot. So, for example, steak is only 1. It's been nerfed by about 75%. So, anyway, I'm going to show you guys how this works so that you can create it in your world as well. Now, you can, first of all, I'll just show you, this is my current power setup for the top layers. Essentially what's happening is I've got arboreal extractors, which take out resin from these spruce trees. Now, a couple things to note. First of all, I specifically use spruce because the other trees that can make resin, spruce is actually twice as fast as them, so it's the best method. Also, these trees have to be naturally grown. You cannot create an artificial tree. They have to be grown, but they can be bone mealed, okay? But they can't just be, you can't just place down some wood logs and expect it to work. Additionally, the arboreal extractors have to be at the bottom wood of the tree. So these pump the resin into the fractionating still, which turns it into 2 objects. It turns it into rosin, and it also turns it into tree sap. Now, you would think, oh, well, rosin, you can burn that in a steam dynamo, so that would have to be the source of power, right? No, wrong. It's actually the tree sap which is the important part. Sorry, the tree oil, my apologies. Now, despite the fact that tree oil has actually been nerfed by 67% in MC Eternal, because again, this mod pack has nerfed a lot of things in order to make it much more difficult. 1 bucket of tree oil, or essentially 10 bits of production from the fractionating still, will set you forward about 400,000 RF. So, and again, it's completely renewable. You never have to replant those trees. You just have to leave them there. You can also take off most of the leaves. However, I would recommend leaving on as many as possible, as I'm not quite sure how many you can take off before it ceases to function as a tree. But if you look, you can pop this tree oil within a compression dynamo for 400,000 RF a tick, which averages out to 400 RF per millibucket of tree oil, which is extremely good for power. I've also got an aqueous accumulator hooked up here with fluiducts to pump water into these compression and steam dynamos, as they do require a coolant in order to function, and water is obviously the easiest one to acquire. And I've just done this about 3 different times over here, here, and here, and I also have an extra one over here which powers my other stuff and these 2, this farm here, and I also have one more which powers these 2 farms right here. I would typically go for 2 trees, but you can make do with 1 as long as you're efficient with your power. But roughly 2 trees per 2, with 1 fractioning still and 2 farms is plenty of power. Should be enough to be renewable. Anyway, moving on to the next part. So this uses several mods. It uses industrial foregoing. It uses the thermal dynamics, thermal expansion. So basically the thermal series. It uses Pam's Harvestcraft, because obviously that's where this food actually comes from. And I'm just trying to think if it uses anything else. I also use Yabba barrels, but you can just do them with oak chests if you don't have that particular mod installed. As this method isn't unique purely to MC Eternal, you can do it on any mod pack with these number of mods installed. And in fact, it's actually probably better because you might actually get some damn food from it instead of just 4 drumsticks and 9.5 saturation. Anyway, so essentially what happens is this is a plant gatherer here with a +3. It's supposed to be +3 actually, sorry, this one's messed up, but just ignore that one. So it's a plant gatherer with a +3 range add-on. So if you go to the show working area, as you can see, it just neatly covers this area. And then on the bottom is the plant sower. Now, keep in mind also this plant sower has a filter, which makes it so that only rice is able to be put into the plant sower. And I've also locked the inventory so nothing but rice can be put into the plant sower. So this plant sower also has, again, a +3 upgrade. And it has to be put in this block below your farm, in the central block, in order to function. I actually put the water here, but you can use the worms as well if you'd like. Just pop them, you know, like here. They cover a 3x3 area, and they do irrigate that area as well, so that is an option. It's just that I was too lazy to go get those worms, so I just dumped a bucket of water down. Anyway, so now this plant gatherer is hooked up to a number of different things. First of all, it's got the power coming in the rear. It's also got a fluiduct coming out the top because plant gatherers do produce sludge whenever they harvest. You can later on use that sludge over in this little thing over here, which is called a sludge refiner, which can turn it into all of the things you see located here, including mycelium, which is actually surprisingly useful. Anyway, so you just put the sludge over those, and you can just, you know, keep on emptying these tanks repeatedly. It's also got a tier 3 reinforced dynamo connected up to it, set to nearest first, so that it prioritizes refilling the plant sower before it sends the rest of the materials down into the production line. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you have it set so that this thing receives materials before the actual, before your production line receives them, because you don't want to be running out of rice when you're trying to make stuff, you know, and so on and so forth. Now, I've currently got it set up, so there's a rice, another rice, another rice, so there's 3 rice, 2 seaweed, a soybeans, a tea leaves, water chestnuts, and mushrooms. Because as you can see here, the recipe for dim sums is it's rice, dough, water chestnut, mushroom, and a raw, it's technically raw meat, but I'll explain that in 1 second. So, now this all looks nice and neat, you'd think, and I accidentally just stood on that, but that's fine. This may look nice and neat, you'd be thinking, but then you get to come down to this part right here, which is where all the magic happens. You get to see this giant mess. Keep in mind, this did take me about 7 hours to make, but you could probably do it faster if you actually knew what you're doing. I had to do a few bits of trial and error, like regarding the presses, which again, I'll get over to soon. But and also I forgot to mention, but it also uses the Buildcraft factory mod as well with the auto workbenches. But I believe there may be other mods that you can use instead of this as well. Anyway, so the 3 raw resources, which is the rice, I use white mushrooms because you can plant them easily, and the water chestnuts just get put straight into these barrels, which sends them straight into the auto workbench. Now keep in mind, the auto workbench does actually set aside slots for each of them, so it won't fill up more than the given amount, so you don't have to worry about overstacking it. But that's why I've got these barrels in place to hold all of the excess in case there is any excess. Because I've tested it and it does work, but I don't know if some crops, you know, end up growing faster than others with their production rates. Anyway, so we come over to here, and as you can see, this is the dough section. So this produces the dough, which then goes into the auto workbench. So this has 2 fields involved in it, which is the rice, which gets turned into flour, and the seaweed, which gets turned into salt. So first of all, the rice is pretty simple. I've got a barrel there to store it into, and then it goes into this auto workbench with a mortar and pestle, which produces the flour, which then gets stored here, and that is then sent into the auto workbench. Now, the fresh water setup is pretty simple. It only requires 3 machines, which is the auto workbench, the fluid transposer, and the aqueous accumulator. So obviously the aqueous accumulator pumps the water into the fluid transposer, and there is a bucket that 2 buckets, that just goes around constantly, being made with the with the auto workbench into the water. Now, you don't have to make it into water. You can just pump the water buckets directly into it. But frankly, I find that to be inefficient and stupid. And so I turn it into fresh water and plug it into that from there, because it's just better that way. It also, if you're crafting manually as well, I would also suggest creating fresh water, because it reduces the number of recipes you need to do by 3, which is just plain more efficient. And also, you can turn the fresh water into more fresh water. So if you put in 1, you can get 8. Then you put that back in, you get another 8. So you can literally just stack it infinitely. But this just does it automatically, nice and simple. Anyway, so then we've got the salt section. Now, normally you actually need to mine salt in the world. There's salt ore. However, I discovered that you can also produce salt via pulverizing seaweed. So the seaweed gets sent into the pulverizer. It produces 2 things. It produces veggie bait, which is something else of Pam's Harvestcraft, but I haven't really touched that because I don't need to. And it also produces salt. And obviously the salt then gets shipped into the auto crafter, which then makes the dough. Now, so that obviously all finishes up there. And then we've got the main step, which is the tofurkey, which is the fake turkey that I made because it's the easiest one available to automate. There was a couple options, but I just figured that this one is probably easier. Also, when I get over to the soybeans, you'll need to pay attention to that one because there is some very specific instructions you need to do in order to make sure that you don't mess up your system. So, first of all, this one uses 4 main materials. You've got a second farm of rice, a second farm of seaweed. You've also got a soybeans farm and a tea leaf farm. Now, I would definitely make sure to keep in mind, I would actually suggest drawing out a map of where you're going to set your crop fields, because otherwise crap gets confusing very quickly. I learned that one the hard way. So anyway, this section right here is obviously just the dough section again, just slightly organized differently. You've got your flour, you've got your salt, you've got your water. That's relatively simple. It's pretty much just the same setup. There's nothing really changed there, except the fact that it then goes into a furnace, which cooks it into bread and then sends that through into the crafting, the auto crafter, in order to make the tofurkey, because tofurkey uses cooking oil, firm tofu, and bread. You can also use baguette snap, but bread is the cheapest option available. Now, that just leaves 2 parts left, which is the tofu and the cooking oil. So first of all, we'll do the easy part, which is the cooking oil. Now, cooking oil does have a couple different recipes. You can use seeds, you can use sesame oil, you can use walnuts, tea leaves, olives, and avocados. However, you'll notice avocado is a tree, olives a tree, walnuts, guess what? It's a tree. And also sesame oil is luckily not a tree, but I couldn't be bothered to find it, so I had tea leaves on hand, so I decided to use them. But essentially, tea leaves are nice and useful because you can make 1 cooking oil for every tea leaf. All you got to do is just grab a juicer, which is seen right there. So tea leaves come down into there, made into cooking oil, and then sent through into this auto crafter, which crafts the tofurkey. The last step, which is pretty important, is the soybeans. So first of all, you've got it pumps down into soybeans. All right. Now this is then converted into presser. Please note, okay, you cannot pull out of a presser from the side. It has to be from the bottom, and it doesn't pull out from the top either, unfortunately. You have to pull it out from the bottom. So keep that in mind, but you do insert it from the sides. Again, not the top, not the bottom. You insert it from the sides, and you pull out from the bottom. That's what she said. Anyway, now something important to note is the hardened retrievers that I have set up. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be hardened. I just made them because they're the most efficient for the resources that I currently have available. And specifically, you have a spare barrel up here, which goes to grain bait, and you need to blacklist silken tofu for this barrel, because otherwise it'll get sent to either, and the grain bait can also get sent to this one, and it just messes up the whole system. I found that out when I was doing my testing, so be sure to keep that in mind. And obviously this one here has blacklisted the grain bait. So the silken tofu is then pressed yet again, and this creates soy milk and firm tofu. So once again, in from the sides, out from the bottom, and also with the 200 retrievers with blacklisted firm tofu. And over here is the barrel, which is blacklisted soy milk. So the firm tofu then gets plugged once again into the crafting table, which then turns into the raw tofurkey. Raw tofurkey goes into the barrel and is then placed into the auto crafter. Once that's all done, it gets enough resources, it will create a dim sum, and you will be able to eat your beautiful fresh produce up the top. Anyway, guys, this has just been a little bit of a quick, 15-minute guide on what took me 7 hours. So again, don't expect it to be as simple as it sounds. It does sometimes require some trial and error if you're not entirely sure on how things work. Feel free to drop in the comments below. Ask me while I'm streaming. I stream every single day. Currently, I stream every single day at 8 PM at Australian Eastern Standard Time until I go back to work in about 2 weeks, in which case I'll be going back to my normal Saturday through to Tuesday streaming. So be sure to keep that in mind. Alternatively, you can also just ask it on the Discord, which I have. I didn't mean to do that. Which I have in the link down below in the good old video description. So anyway, like I said, guys, I hope you have enjoyed my pain and suffering, and I will see you all next time. Peace.